So this is Ori and the Blind Forest. I'm just going to do a quick introduction. I'm SmashyLe.
I'm Roos. Shukshu. Hello.
And then we'll kind of explain as we go. But I'll do a countdown. 3, 2, 1, go.
Good luck.
Thank you. All right. You want to?
Sure. So Ori and the Blind Forest, as we mentioned, this is a game that came out a couple of years ago. It is a Metroidvania style platformer. That means that you know, it is a platformer, but it's very exploration heavy. The base game, you're going to spend a lot of time going around and exploring, looking for movement skills that are going to give you access to new areas. This category specifically is all cells, no restrictions. Cells are basically what you find throughout the world to increase your stats, so like more experience, more mana,
health,
more
power-ups, and mana, yeah.
Exactly. So we have to get all of those and then complete the game. And then no restrictions means there's no rules about staying inbounds, things like that. So as we go later and later in this run, you're going to start to see some really, really crazy glitches.
It's very different from the route I'm used to, which was all skills, no out of bounds, no teleport anywhere. So basically, pretty much like no major glitches. This is going to have major glitches.
So we just picked up our very first skill. It's this little companion, this little ball that's next to us that gives us a basic attack. You can see that she's shooting these Frankies with lasers here. Just have to fight these 3 guys just as sort of like a tutorial for how combat works, and now we can make our way on towards our next skill. The general layout for the routing of this is we go and we find the skills that give us the ability to move quickly, and then we come back to every area and kind of clean up all the cells rather than spend a lot of time detouring to cells at first.
Experience is very important in this game, and you need to gather some experience, but not too much, because you need to well, I'm not sure in this route if it's relevant, but
it is.
Yeah, usually, yeah, you need to calculate your the experience you get, because you need to level up at certain moments.
There's a couple of important reasons for that. When you level up, you get a point, which we actually can't see right now because you have the ability to turn off your UI in this game. And you tend to do that just because it skips all of the dialogue boxes automatically when you do so. But she is gathering points when she gets level ups, and you can spend those on upgrades for your various skills. So we want to be able to get those. And on top of that, we also, when you level up, a big burst of energy comes out from you, and it does a lot of damage. So it can be useful to level up at certain times to to get that effect for some AoE damage to clear enemies or obstacles out of the way.
Or refill your health and mana bars, too.
Exactly. So the experience you get is actually those little orange balls that drop from enemies as you kill them. So she's very carefully counting how much she's got. And you can see she just flashed her UI there. She's about halfway to a level up. She's trying to make sure she levels up at a specific time on the way back out of this little area we're headed down into.
Oh, it's kind of laggy, so.
All right, so she's just about to level up. She's very, very close to it. On our way back out of this little cave we're going into, she's going to level up to clear out all of those purple brambles that were on our way. We are about to pick up our second skill here, which is wall jump. Does pretty much what you think it would do. It lets you jump on walls.
There's about 12 skills total, I think, in this game.
That's 11.
11? Yeah.
Counting sign, which is the first one we picked up. So.
11 is about 12, so you're not wrong.
I wasn't too far.
You can also see that when she flashes her UI, you can see her health, and the blue ones are basically her energy. And you can use those to save the game, but you can also use them for various abilities that we'll get later in the game. So that's going to be managing your energy later on is going to become quite important. Early on, it's really just used for saves, though. So what we're doing now is we're making our way back towards the area at the beginning of the game, and we're going to be going to an area that was added in the DLC expansion to the game, the Definitive Edition. This area has 2 new skills that were added, and the important one we're going to be grabbing is we're going there for a skill called Dash, which is probably the most important thing in the game in terms of going quickly. So we want to go there as soon as possible. Now that we have wall jump, we're going to be able to do it. But it's a little bit difficult of an area, so it's a bit treacherous.
I'm just going to go ahead and kill this guy because I have my one.
Yeah, and she's having to very carefully keep track of her health, as mentioned, because you can't actually directly see it, but with a runner as experienced as SmashyLe knows how much health she's at just through doing enough runs that when she takes damage here and there, she can keep track of it quite well. And what you're seeing right now is a glitch where the menu that she's brought up there is a way to level up and increase like the power of your skills, but she's glitching and causing herself to be able to move in the background while that's up. When you spend your level up points on those upgrades, you have the effect of saving the game. So by letting yourself move in the background, you can get to the start of a cutscene and then spend that point to save the game and then reload back in. And because you've already started the cutscene, when you reload back in, the game just like has flagged it as having already happened. So you load back in and the cutscene doesn't play. You've already essentially finished it out.
So we'll pretty much skip all the cutscenes in the game with this very trick. Well, most of them.
Really long.
This is a very treacherous little area. You got these narrow platforms, and they're kind of bobbing up and down on semi-random cycles. So you have to kind of like look at them and make sure you're catching this
like
platform.
Even,
Yeah,
so
try.
like, it's kind of, these are like completely even with each other. So and
Yeah.
it's lagging a lot.
It's okay. It's not that costly. She put a save down. You can see that you can save whenever you want to in this game, outside of when enemies are really close to you. So you just spend some energy to put it down. Wow, these are really unpleasant cycles right here.
Yeah.
I don't even know. This is really bizarre.
There we go.
Nice. Dying in this game and in the speedrun is totally normal. It's I think when I played this game at first,
Trying to let it go. Trying to let it go.
Oh wow! I didn't.
Nope. Okay.
So this can absolutely happen in the speedrun. This area of Blackroot Burrows is just like, it's pretty much the most hated area by speedrunners because it's dark, you have very little in the way of movement skills, and you just have these like unpleasant bobbing platform cycles, so a lot of runs die here. Fortunately, this safety save has been pretty high value. Ooh, cutting that close. Okay, very nice, very nice. So we had just... The other unpleasant part about Blackroot is we just have to carry this orb on our back, which makes us slower, and we can't jump as much, so it really slows you down. And these lasers right here are instant kill, by the way, so you need to be very, very careful with these cycles. We're most of the way through the dangerous parts, though. There's a few slimes, but the instant kill lasers and those spikes down at the bottom are definitely like the most lethal parts. Now you saw her pause there for just a second. She's essentially manipulating some platform cycles to give herself the best platform cycle in the next room after this one. So this is absolutely the slowest part of the run. Once we grab dash, we're instantly going to be sped up by several factors over, and it's only going to get more and more crazy as things go on.
Then we actually start the out of bounds.
Yeah, so the first half of this route is fairly similar to the route that Shakushu mentioned, where you don't go out of bounds a whole lot. The crazy glitches tend to come a little bit later once we have all of our fast movement skills. So the back half of this run is where things really start to get crazy. But if you're familiar with an all skills run, the beginning, like the first half of this run, will look fairly familiar. Here's another cutscene skip coming up using the aforementioned ability leveling up technique.
So I'm actually 1 experience point off, so I'm gonna have to grab a little bit on the way here. Oh.
So as she just mentioned, we're setting up a timed level up later to refill our energy. When you level up, I think you mentioned it, but when you level up, you get all of your health and energy back. So we're going to go through a dry section where we can't really fill up our energy, but we need quite a bit. So we're going to have to time a level up to make sure we get it in the right time. All right, so we'll be coming up to our first out of bounds here. What we're going to do is we're actually going to take advantage of this boulder by crouching in a specific spot here, and it pushes Ori under the ground. And she was able to put a save down, and it's actually slightly below the floor. So we're going to come grab this health cell and then go back down and use one of our leveled up abilities that allows us to reactivate the save point. So when she dies and it goes back to the save point, she's back under the floor and is able to completely bypass a huge section of the game and get into Moon Grotto. This part of the game, like casually, is, I don't know, maybe even an hour later after where we just were. It's a huge
Even
skip.
in the speedrun, it's like 10 minutes.
Yeah, that's a huge out of bounds right there. And it gets us very close to our next skill, which we'll be grabbing, which is called double jump, which lets you jump a second time in the air. And that damage that she just took, by the way, is intentional. She's trying to set up this intentional death right here to do what's called a ghost door. You'll notice that she put some keys she's been collecting into that door. Now there's a very slow animation of that door opening up, but if you die if you put the keys in, save, and then die, when you come back in, the door is just already open. So by taking that intentional damage and setting it up so the spider finishes her off, we save just a few seconds there on letting the door open. Now this right here, you can notice that she's actually moving off screen right now. She used the cutscene skip on the cutscene of the tree, but for some reason when you load back in, the camera keeps zooming in on the tree, but you yourself gain the ability to move around. So she actually has the entire section off to the left memorized and is doing movement off screen, but can't actually see herself the entire time until the camera catches up.
And it's very hardcore. There's a lot of spike pits and enemies.
Yeah, and there's some poison water too,
yeah.
So it's some scary stuff. Bit of a sequence break right here. There's a very precise spot on the wall that you can jump on and get a double jump. Very nice. That was super clean. That's not easy, trust me. That trick has bodied quite a few people. Another little cutscene skip here to prevent some rocks falling down in this area that we're climbing up right now. So because of that out of bounds we did, we're kind of doing this entire area in reverse of where you're supposed to casually, which has the effect of breaking some cutscenes. You can see this guy off to the left here holding this lever. That is Gumo, and we're supposed to have seen a lot of story with him so far, and we're supposed to be coming from the other direction, so that's like the start of a cutscene, but we're seeing it from the other side. Like you can see there's 2 copies of him here. It really, really breaks the setup of the cutscenes to do this. Another little, sorry, go ahead.
Sure, go ahead.
We have a $2 donation from Electronic Logic, and he says, "Hi."
Hi.
So here's another little jump, kind of similar to that sequence break from before where you have to jump off a very precise section of the wall to get a health cell. This is that section that we needed the time level up for because to open the door into where we just got that health cell required spending some energy, but we had just used all of ours up on saves for those cutscene glitches.
Oh boy. Take it easy right there.
Yeah, to get to that, it's not technically supposed to be possible with the skills we have right now, but she's using a movement technique called dash gliding, where she's going to activate her dash and then hold neutral inputs, so she's not going to hold left or right at all and going to jump out of it. And she kind of maintains some of her initial dash momentum, more so than she normally would. And that allows you to just get a little bit extra horizontal distance and make those jumps that you couldn't quite otherwise. So if any of you are familiar with Ori and the Blind Forest, we're headed into definitely a fan favorite area called the Ginso Tree. It's the first of 3 dungeons. It's a really vertically oriented dungeon. You're kind of climbing up the interior of a tree, and it has some of the coolest, most memorable sections in it, as well as a really, really awesome skill, which we'll talk about when we get to it. But just in the meantime, just know that that's where we're headed into.
So did you take the teleport to teleport back there
So
later?
I just activated it because we're going to be teleporting to it later.
Okay, yeah, that's it. Because, yeah, you can activate some teleports around the map, and then when you reach one, it's like a fast travel point.
So we found out we don't have to actually save on it to activate it. As long as sign goes into it, it'll be activated.
Yeah, so that's going to come into play a little bit later in the run. And you can see a lot of the rest of the game has been kind of laid out left to right, but this dungeon is the first part of the game we've had that's just really, really vertically stacked. So it's definitely like a different kind of challenge for your platforming here, especially with all these hanging platforms and things like this, and these little gamer cycles here can be quite difficult. But SmashyLe's making it look quite easy here. Very nicely done.
So here's another little out of bounds.
So what she's doing here is she's putting a save down, and then she's going to put this block on top of it and reactivate the save. So when she loads back in, it's trying to put her where the block is, and it will just end up pushing her through the floor, and she'll drop through there. And it's actually faster to do that than to do the puzzle to break the walls to get in there. So this mini-boss here, there are 5 positions it can spawn in, and it's random which one they'll go to, but there is a very, very tiny 1 frame long flash that will show where it's headed to. So if you can catch it, you can anticipate it and go there and get the maximum number of shots off. With the amount of damage we're able to do right now, you can get, I think, a 4-cycle. Is that right? Yeah, you can 4-cycle the boss pretty easily. If you are a task level god, you can do it in 3, but that's so difficult.
He had some bad spawns there, so.
Yeah, also you must keep in mind that you cannot just spam your attack. There's a certain delay you have to respect, or else you're just gonna miss some attacks.
Yeah, it's got a cooldown on it before you can fire more shots. So we're doing another ghost store here, putting the keys in and then dying. And we're now acquiring my personal favorite skill in this game, and I think it really is what defines Ori and the Blind Forest.
Yeah,
completely agree.
Pretty much. I was about to say the exact same words.
You know what? I want you to explain Bash, because it sounds like you enjoy Bash a lot.
Well, Bash is basically you target either an enemy or something in the like in the background, like your lantern that is hanging, and you can choose direction and bash from it. So it's like if you like give a kick to it. It's like if you give a kick to it and then use the momentum to jump out of it. So it gives a lot of movement options.
Yeah, so much utility. And what I find really exciting about it as a speedrun ability is that it incentivizes you to be very close to stuff that's dangerous, because you go fast by being right next to enemies and grabbing onto them. So it makes you both very fast, and it also makes things quite dangerous, because you're always exposing yourself to danger in order to bash off of things. So we're doing a trick right here called key duplication. Essentially the way it's working is she left a save outside of the load zone that we're in. Okay, unfortunately gonna have to redo it, but it gives me more time to explain the trick. She's put this save down here, which is outside of the loading zone of that door up there, and she's gonna collect 3 keys on the map, and then she's going to intentionally take a death after putting those 3 keys into the door. And the game's gonna get a little confused. It's gonna give her back the 3 keys that she put in the door, but it's also going to put them back on the map because it's in a different load zone. So of the 4 keys that are on the map, we're actually going to be collecting 6 keys. Somebody can maybe figure out that math at some point.
Oh gosh. Kind of mess up my health.
You could just skip the ghost door, I guess.
Maybe. Can I get out of this portal?
So it's important to collect this energy cell on the second pass through here after you've duplicated the keys, because if you collect it and then duplicate the keys, you'll have died and actually not gotten yourself the cell. Okay, this will work out. Oop.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, the keys were not going in correctly. I don't know what was right. Didn't get the hyperspeed, but that's okay.
Worked out though. So we're almost done with the Ginso tree, and I'm sorry to disappoint you if you've played this game casually, because directly above us is a really incredible escape sequence that's probably the highlight of the game for almost everybody who plays it. We're not actually going to be doing it because all that it does is get us access to an area known as Thornfelt Swamp, but we have tricks to get in there that are faster, so we're just going to teleport out. And that is probably the biggest tragedy of Ori speedrunning, is that the Ginso escape is slow.
So what I just did there is I set up for what's known as a warp displacement, so I'm able to move while this is going. Oh my gosh. And then we just warp right to this swamp cell.
All right, so that basically just bypassed doing what that Ginso escape would be, and she's now going to be bringing this frog with her as a way to break into the inner swamp area, which has our next skill. And, oh, very nice shot.
I meant to double bash there, but he made it up, so I'm happy. He's really far away now.
So we don't have the skills to break these barriers ourselves, but by bringing this frog over here, we can basically trick him into using his shot to break them for us with some creative bashing here.
So SmashyLe mentioned the double bashing technique. It's something you'll see sometimes. You know, when she uses bash, you'll see a white arrow saying where Ori will go. But sometimes you'll see 2, and this is called double bashing. So basically, you bash once, and during the animation of the bash happening, you re-bash on the projectile, and it's pretty much frame perfect, but there's a setup for it on PC. But yeah, it's a very hard trick, but it makes so you can send the projectile at the same direction that you're going.
Yeah,
so you can re-bash on it after. It gains a lot of height.
As you mentioned, she's using like the bash input bound onto her mouse scroll wheel. It's still difficult, but it makes it a lot easier to hit that 1 frame window. It takes some practice even with that technique, but it's not nearly as bad as just a manual 1 frame.
So we just got a ground pound.
Yeah, so the stomp ability is useful because it can break barriers on the floor, but also it's useful because stomping gets you to your terminal velocity in a downward direction immediately, so it can be quite useful if you need to go downwards.
These double bashes are harder in water.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's actually been confirmed by testing. Double bashing underwater is more inconsistent for some reason, but we need to bring this fish or grab onto this fish and use it to juggle our way up high. You're supposed to come back here after you've gained the ability to kind of float upwards on some wind currents, but that would be incredibly out of our way.
Come on. These are dropping.
Fortunately, we have the save right here. Also, the reason we're taking damage in water, it doesn't look immediately obvious because the water looks so clean, but this area is supposed to be like poisoned water, and you're supposed to clear it up by doing that tree escape that we mentioned. And because we skipped it, and you're not supposed to be able to get in here otherwise.
Oh, these are dropping so bad.
You got this. So yeah, so basically the water is still poisoned even though the graphics don't reflect it because you were not supposed to be able to get here otherwise.
Oh gosh.
You got this, just take it slow.
I know, but like they shouldn't be dropping this bad.
There we go. Okay,
Whew.
got ourselves in.
Wow.
Oh, man.
Nice one.
Reminder that
Had me worried.
even with the scroll wheel, those are still frame perfect
Yeah,
tricks.
just doing one is super hard. You have to do like 5 in a row.
All right, so a little bit more frog manipulation here. Oh, nope, sorry, I'm thinking of the wrong route. You used that frog to get the cell that we actually grabbed just by teleporting onto it earlier.
Usually I'll skip this cutscene, but I kind of went into it.
Yeah, there's a really tiny little ledge to land on and be able to skip that cutscene. Fortunately, it's pretty short, so even if you miss it, it's really not a particularly big deal. One more cell to grab here. This is a health cell. The nice thing about this route is because you are collecting all the cells, it means you get to have a lot more health and energy than you typically would in other speedrun routes.
All right, and we actually need that level up for a cutscene skip in a little bit here.
Got another little series of double bashes here. We're going to get these guys to shoot at us and juggle its projectile upwards rather than actually climbing through the gauntlet that it would want you to do otherwise. Here's another example of these backwards cutscenes due to our sequence breaking. That's supposed to be the start of a cutscene with Gumo there, but we're just completely breaking the rules of the game at this point. So the reason we're going over the top of this tree here is twofold. There's a cell that we need, but also there's a 17-second long cutscene, and its trigger is underneath that tree. So we're going to come through this area a few times, and we're going to always make sure to go over the top of it rather than watch that cutscene at any point. So demonstrating kind of the Metroidvania aspect of this game, this is actually quite an early game area, but you can see these cells are in places that are kind of hard to access. The general flow of this game, just when you're not speedrunning it, is you go through these areas, but there's all sorts of things you can't access, and then you come back to it later once you have more skills. So it's a very exploration-heavy game. Quite a lot of fun. I highly recommend this game to anyone casually.
Yeah, and also there's a sequel coming.
So just to demonstrate just how much we're sequence breaking this game, this skill that we're getting right now, casually this is the second skill you get, but this is what, like the 6th or something right now? So we're completely out of order. So this was Charge Flame. You're not really gonna see a whole lot of it. Basically it's just, instead of your little laser attack, it lets you hold the button down and charge up a big explosive attack.
I actually don't think I use it at all. Do I?
Oh
wait, we need it for we need it to get certain abilities in this menu as well.
Yeah, that's the only thing. It locks the ability to level up certain things in that ability menu. But as far as actually using the skill, I don't think you'll ever actually will at any point. So we're now entering the left side of the map, which is where most of the late game stuff is. So stuff is going to start doing a lot more damage. This game is going to start getting quite a bit more lethal. You know, spikes in earlier areas were maybe doing 1 or 2 damage. They're now going to start doing 3 and even 4 or more after this. And we only have like 6 or 7 health at this point, as I recall. So you can't afford a whole lot of mistakes in this area without taking deaths. I love watching bash movement with dashing. It's just so cool. So what you just saw there was a glitch called a rocket jump, where she's leveled up her dash ability to allow you to spend energy to go directly towards an enemy with really high velocity. And the glitch she's doing is essentially charging towards an enemy above her and then interrupting it with a jump so that it's forgetting to decelerate her, so she just stays rushing upwards incredibly quickly. And we're going to see some cool rocket jumps throughout the run. Uh-oh.
Oh,
That's fine. I'll reload.
So what she's trying to do here is break some rocks off to the left by shooting a shot from a spider at it and then racing away so that it unloads some rocks in the way and grabbing a cell while she's at it. So she did hit the rocks and broke them, but unfortunately when those rocks get hit, it triggers a cutscene that's going to teleport her to the left. And by not making it to the cell in time, she has to do a lot of backtracking to come back and get it. So it actually ends up being better to just reload and retry the trick rather than just backtracking. All right, so there we go. That's what it's supposed to look like. Nicely done. That trick is so difficult, by the way. I cannot stress enough how hard a lot of what she's doing is here. You want to talk a bit about the skill we're picking up here?
Yeah, we're gonna. This is the glide feather, so it's very useful because it's used to when you jump and you can hold the button for the feather and you're gonna conserve your falling speed. Well, I mean, it's gonna slow down your falling speed, so you can glide as the title suggests.
Okay.
But you can also oh, nice rocket jump right there. But you can also use it with the other skills you have, like dash, to have more speed and keep it with glide.
So this is a really infamous trick right here. This is Sorrow Bash. We're trying to get into an area called Sorrow Pass, which is supposed to come quite a bit later, and you're supposed to just be able to float through some wind currents with glide to get up through this passage. These spikes are all incredibly lethal, by the way, but we don't want to have to actually go and do all of that, so very nicely done. She's just going to manipulate those birds with double bashes and dashes to kind of skip your way in. And because the game doesn't expect you to be able to get in here without the wind already on, it just kind of has those wind currents in here no matter what. So she's able to float up on the wind currents even though she hasn't activated them in the game yet, as long as she's in here.
Yeah, and you can also use the glide feather to use the wind currents to go up.
And so there's a couple of cells in here we need to collect, as well as an important skill called Charge Jump, which we'll talk about when we grab it. There's one of the cells we're grabbing, and we're going to be doing a cool out of bounds here in just a second, which can be extremely frustrating to set up.
I'm probably going to say it before it.
Grabbing a couple extra keys. These are instant kill lasers, by the way. Definitely don't want to hit any of these. So what she's going to do for this out of bounds is she's going to have this little tumbleweed float up to the ceiling, and there's a little notch in the ceiling that she's going to try and float into, and then have this tumbleweed come up from underneath her and the left and push her up through the ceiling. Oh, unfortunately not quite in the right spot. So it needs to roll over her and push her up. Oh man, this is why this out of bounds is so frustrating. I hate it. But anyway, so this tumbleweed is going to push her up through the ceiling, and now she's out of bounds and can get her way up under the underside of these spikes and just float her way up through. Has to take a damage boost to get through them, but it skips a big long section of going around and coming up through this. So now we're going to grab the charge jump skill, which just allows you to hold up for a second, and then you'll get a big, powerful upwards jump attack that can break barriers, does a lot of damage, and gets you a lot of vertical height.
It's a bit like the drum stun, but reversed.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, actually. I've never made that connection. So that was the charge jump she just used there. You can kind of angle it, and it was actually able to break a wall, not just a ceiling there. Nice movement through there. Those spikes I think do 5 damage. Yep. So you can afford 1 hit on them, but you'll be very close to death. And that's only if you're at full health. These spikes are also super lethal. So all of this movement through here is really frightening if you're not super experienced.
Yeah, and you can see that all the skills are used like in unison to make a super fluid movement.
Yeah, I think pretty much everyone who runs this game will agree that like the reason to run this game is the movement is so satisfying to improve at. I mean, it's beautiful to watch all of this gliding and bashing and dashing and jumping and stomping. It just flows together so nicely. So now we're entering my personal favorite area. This is Misty Woods. It's very similar to the Lost Woods from Zelda, where you the terrain actually changes as you work your way through it, and it's based on certain triggers. Unfortunately, we're not going to get to do all of it because we're going to be going and collecting a cell that we need to finish the game, but then we're just going to be out of bouncing and not actually finishing out the back half. But just enjoy the really, really cool movement through all these narrow, spiky corridors.
And we can't save in here because I need the energy for some stuff coming up next.
Yeah, we're gonna have several out of bounds in a row that require energy, and you can't really refill as much as you would like through this section. Yeah, I was gonna definitely say grab the crystals just for safety.
I usually do.
That's a good call.
So we're about to set up our first Terra clip, which is a sort of universal out of bounds where she's going to set up a save near a wall, and she's going to bring up this ability menu. And what she just did there was she dashed towards the wall and spent a point to save at the same time. So she goes and leaves the loading zone and dies, and when she loads back in, she's dashing towards the wall, and it takes a frame for the wall to load back in, but she's moving so fast that she actually gets outside the wall before it has a chance to reload in. So she just gets into the void past the wall and floats into the second dungeon, Forlorn. This is Forlorn Ruins, which we're coming in just long enough to get a cell, and then we'll be out of bouncing right back out again.
I don't think this this region has any skills, because in the all skill speedrun you don't go there.
Yeah, we the only reason to go here is because there's a cell. In all skills, you completely skip this. Oh no!
Thanks. Insta-kill lasers.
Oh, no.
High value safety save.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you only come in here because there's a cell. If it weren't for that, we could completely skip this. There are some categories like all dungeons that were designed to kind of force you to more fully complete the game. That does have to, those do have to come here. But in this one, we're just coming in to grab the cell.
I'm just gonna wait for this laser. These are kind of spooky.
This is like possibly the scariest part of this route right here, because these cycles on the lasers are quite tight if you're trying to move through here really quickly.
I think I just dropped one, but I got enough energy.
You have two, yeah, that should be enough if you're careful. All right, so we've got another Terra clip here, and she's going to back up her save because this one has a lot of potential to mess up, and because you have to spend the points to do the Terra clip, you only get one shot at it. So if she messes it up, she has a copied save in another file that she can go back to and reload. Otherwise, the run is just over. Okay.
Oh, I gotta reload that. I think I'm gonna just go back up. Back that one up.
So the reason we're having a Terra clip here is because we out of bounds into this area, we're actually inside a locked room and have no way back out other than using this Terra clip to get our way back out as well. So she's Terra clipping through this wall as a way to get back out to an area that we can get to a teleporter and leave Forlorn Ruins with.
That's why I didn't save right away.
That one looks pretty good. There we go. Nicely done.
Yes.
Okay, so just over to a teleporter and back to the start of the game. And then now that we pretty much have all of our important skills, we're just collecting cells at this point.
Yeah, the rest of skills. I think there's light grenade left, and
yeah, we need that one to get to a few cells that are blocked by it.
oh yeah.
Oh yeah, that's true. We do have one more. So we actually skipped a skill called Climb in Misty Woods because we out of bounds before it, but it's not required to get any of the cells, and it doesn't speed us up by enough to be worth getting. So backing up our save again, because we've got another Terra clip coming up here. This is going to allow us to skip doing a whole bunch of this part of the world. We're just going to get straight to that light grenade skill tree that Shakushu just mentioned.
Yeah, sure.
We have a $5 donation from, I can read it backwards, but it's OGN Dresseur, I guess.
Richard.
Just call him Richard.
Okay, I wasn't sure. It says Richard, but backwards. Good luck, Smashy Heart. You're doing amazingly collecting these cells. And then we have a $20 donation from Claire saying, nicely done bringing Ori to Dreamhack, Smashy. Good luck in the run, Smash FH.
So we just collected that light grenade skill, which allows you to spend half an energy to throw an energy grenade, and we only really need it because there's a couple of cells that are locked behind these little lanterns that you light up by throwing a grenade at it. If it weren't for that, we could skip this skill entirely, but can't do it, unfortunately, so do have to take the time to collect it. One of the nice parts about this category over all skills is that you get to see a lot more of the world. Particularly, this part was added in the Definitive Edition, and it's so pretty. I love the color scheme and everything here, and the music is so nice. So it's cool to have to come down here to collect a few cells.
Yeah, the music in general in this game is pretty nice.
Completely agreed there. One of my favorite soundtracks to a game. Those spikes she's jumping over are instant kill, by the way, so very important not to touch those.
Wait on this one. And he's blocking.
Oh
my
no!
way.
Oh goodness!
That was close.
So another cell here, and then I'm about to sound like a broken record, but we're going to set up another Terra clip here. You'll notice a theme in the back half of this run.
Terra clip,
actually
insta
gonna
kill, Terra kill,
back
insta
this
kill.
We're just gonna back that one up. It gave me some trouble earlier, so.
Nothing wrong with that. So this is yet another way to bypass a whole bunch of area that we would have to otherwise walk through, which, I mean, we can do quickly-ish because of our skills, but still, this is much, much faster. And this basically gets us like straight through to the very bottom of this area. And we have a pretty tricky cell to collect here, unfortunately. Looks like, are you gonna do that?
The load zones are so bad here.
Yeah, even on like the beastliest of computers, there's still load zones in this area. It's a little bit unoptimized sometimes. It's just something you kind of have to deal with. Setting up another Terra clip here. There is a cell that's directly under our feet right now, but it's through a long section of water with some crushers, so like on cycles. So by Terra clipping through here, you don't have to swim in. You just have to Terra clip to it and now swim out. A reminder that the water is poison, so we're taking damage slowly every second that we're in the water. And you know, you're at risk of getting crushed by these, and you can take damage from the fish as well. So everything is horrible, is what we're trying to say.
I might have to.
Yeah, I think you're just gonna have to wait. We do have a lot of health, fortunately, but it's still pretty tight to make it back out of here.
I was trying not to double bash because I was having so much trouble with it earlier, so. Which I don't think I necessarily need to.
Yeah, I think if you just do regular bashes and just play it safe, you can make it. Ooh. Made it out
spooky,
though.
but
Nicely
clutch.
done. Okay, so now to get back out of here, we've got one more Terra clip we're gonna do, and it's actually gonna be taking us back to that Moon Grotto area where we got double jump earlier, but it's gonna take us to kind of the bottom of that section where we can collect a few cells and then work our way back out again. You are very brave doing that without killing that slime first.
If I do it quick enough, he just...
So there's a slime in the top left of that screen, which kind of moves left and right, and if it comes too far to the right, your charge dash will target it instead of going towards the wall, and it will mess up your Terra break.
Now we're back in Grotto.
Very nicely done. So we got that energy cell that's required here. Now the plan is basically to work our way back out of the Moon Grotto area, which we haven't seen this part of it in particular before, but we'll be getting back to the area we've been to pretty soon. There's one more cell to collect, one health cell off to our left, which, thanks to our incredibly powerful movement skills, doesn't take too long to get to. Oh, so what you're seeing her do there when she's doing those charge dashes, what it kind of looks like is she's rushing forward and then kind of flipping in the air and then rushing forward again. Those are what's called stomp cancels. So it costs an energy to do a charge dash, But if you can interrupt it in some way before it finishes, you actually get that energy refunded. You do have to have the energy up front, but it gets refunded back to you if you can interrupt it. So what she's doing is she's charge dashing, and before it finishes, she's stomping, which interrupts her forward momentum and gives her the energy back, and then jumping to cancel the stomp. So basically you can, as long as you still have more jumps in the air, you can dash, stomp, jump, dash, stop, jump, and that will allow you to, without burning any energy, you can really, really quickly move around.
That reminds me that if you are getting hypnotized by the movement or in the blind forest, you might be interested in watching the test that has been made for this category. It's a bit old, so it's different from the route you're seeing right now. But it's pretty interesting to see all the movement executed like frame perfectly every time. And SmashyLe is actually one of the contributors to this task.
So that clip that you just did is known as the butter clip because that wall is so smooth to go through that it's like just, you know, going through butter. You literally just bash off of that bramble at sort of like a 45-degree up and left angle, and you just get straight through the wall. There's almost no wall there. Another nice little rocket jump there, and we couldn't collect this cell earlier because you can see that that door was locked by having grenade, which we didn't have when we were in this area earlier. So another way to refund your energy from charge dashes is if you charge dash towards an enemy and bash on it before your charge dash is completed, that also refunds your energy as well. So that's another really good way to get around quickly without spending all of your energy. So we're getting into the late game now. There's a handful more cells we've got to collect in this area, and then we'll be doing one last cell collection loop with some warp displacements, and then on towards the end of the game.
Oh no. I don't want him throwing grenades.
I always forget to collect the cell that she just picked up right there. Like, so we actually had a tournament for this category not that long ago, and in a tournament race on stream, no less, I forgot to get that cell right there.
Run invalid.
I did fortunately remember it before the run ended, but we did actually have some people in the tournament like finish out a run without all the cells, and they had to reload and go back. It's not a good feeling. So this is, as you can tell by all the lava and scary looking enemies, this is actually right towards the end of the game. The final dungeon is just off to the left here.
I think I just dashed.
So she's setting up another Terra clip here. I actually don't do this one, so I'm not super familiar with the intricacies of it, but it looks tricky to set up.
C-dash one. Just getting through this wall.
So that was an intentional death to get outside the load zone and Terra clip through that wall, collect on this cell. And so because we're doing this part backwards, you just get to jump through that log. You're supposed to have to drop a rock on it to break it, but thanks to the magic of sequence breaking, stuff does not work how it's supposed to. All right, so we're actually going to be leaving. Even though we're right near the end of the game, we have a couple more cells we have to collect. So we're gonna head out of here, go do some warp displacing to get our last few cells, and then we'll be coming back. Although we won't be coming through the front door.
Oh god. I just killed them all. That's alright, we have a backup.
Oh, I didn't know about that backup. That's pretty good.
Let me guess, we're gonna out of bounds into it.
Hello.
Oh, the game crashed? Oh,
No.
my God.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No, I just exited out.
Okay.
So we're now going to do another one of those warp displacement tricks. This time we're going to be using it to go off to the left towards Valley. There's a cell that's locked, and you're supposed to have to use climb to be able to get to it, which I had mentioned we actually don't need. And the reason we don't need it is because we can do this warp displacement into out of bounds just above it and just fall right in and collect the cell.
You make it look. You make it look so easy.
They can be a little tricky sometimes.
She's definitely underselling it. Some of these tricks are extremely difficult.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, he's gonna run into the
goodness.
wall. Oh, maybe he did both.
Yo, nice. Good save. So there's a wall that she had to break by throwing that guy into it, and it got a little off the rails there, but managed to snipe it anyway.
So now we're just kind of going back and recollecting cells we could. This is the Valley of the Wind. And we'll be doing a long swim. The water is still dirty, so we have to have a lot of health for that.
Fortunately, we have almost all of the health in the game at this point, so it's not as scary as it could be, but still, you never want to be in poison water.
Oh my gosh. I guess we're gonna do this a little differently.
All right, so here's the long poison swim. And so in addition to poison water, there's also these crushers going back and forth, which are instant kill if you get squished in them. So a lot of times you have to play it safe, and that just means you spend more time in poison water.
Yeah. So there's a little puzzle here we're supposed to do, but we can just charge jump over it. It's a lot faster. And we have plenty of health. Oh, as I say that, we still have plenty of health.
So we actually have an ability called Ultra Defense, which was an upgrade that we had leveled in the menu a while back. And Ultra Defense just, I don't know, I can't remember the exact mathematical formula, but it's close to 50% damage. There's something to do with rounding that I'm not 100% sure on.
Okay. So we're trying to get over this slow zone here that we skipped earlier.
Yeah, some of the cutscenes, when you skip them, it leaves behind like an area where when you walk through it, you get slowed way down. And they're supposed to go away after watching the cutscene, but they end up sticking around because of the cutscene glitching.
Well, didn't get the movement I wanted to, but...
Yeah, there's some pretty fancy movement through here if you can get everything to line up with the enemies just right, involving a rocket jump. We get this one instead, though. All right, so there's 2 cells we got to collect right over here. There's one off to the left, and then you can see an energy cell underneath our feet
I don't
here.
have enough energy. Wow. I was trying to dash me, so. But that's okay, because we're about to refill on energy here.
So you're supposed to drop a rock in here and push it and like have it block the laser for you and shield you, but thanks to our incredible aerial mobility, you can actually just completely bypass that with our charge dashes and jumps there. A little bit more poison swimming to get another cell here. I think there's this and one more, and that's it, right? Well, there's R1, right? Yeah, but there's one last one after this on the way to the end of the game, which we'll be getting anyway. All right, so now we're going to go use our teleporter for another warp displacement. This time we're going to go back to the top of the Ginso tree dungeon from quite a bit earlier. And if you look at a map of the game, the Ginso tree is actually, it's kind of like on the north end of the map. And there's not really anything between the Ginso tree and the final dungeon. There's just a lot of empty void space. So we're actually going to be using a Terra Clip to get out of bounds from the top of the Ginso tree here, and then just float through the void into the final dungeon, bypassing almost the entirety of it. If this works out correctly, she's just going to come into the final dungeon right where the cell we need is, and then we can just grab it, get back out of the room, and then actually out of bounds one more time, literally to the very end of the final escape sequence, which is sort of like the final boss of the game. There's not an actual boss fight, there's just a very dangerous, like fiery lava escape you have to do.
Yeah, like in every Metroidvania game, you have an escape after the boss.
Beautiful out of bounds. That's a lot harder than it looks. She basically just has to like blindly time her movement through the void there and got exactly into where she wants to be there. So this is the final dungeon. This is Mount Horu. We're actually like pretty deep into it right here, but thanks to that out of bounds, we didn't have to do any of the rest of the dungeon.
No.
Oh goodness.
That's fine. It didn't trigger. Fine. I didn't get that. Fine.
Okay, so now we're going to set up one final Terra Clip here, and we're actually very close to the end section of that dangerous final escape, but by using a Terra Clip out through the top left of this screen, we're going to be able to come out almost at the very end of that escape sequence and just trigger the end of the game. Very nice.
Take this easy.
Okay, one last save. And the reason we want to make sure to have the ability menu up here is because during the final cutscene, if you spend a point to skip part of the cutscene, it cuts the amount of cutscene you have to watch about in half.
Oh my gosh, please.
Would it be a good time for a donation?
Sure, go ahead. Yeah.
So we got $20 from Bezevenglage saying it's gonna be in French. So Shokosho in Dallas, Seaboy. So thank you.
Okay, so she's actually finished the run. She just has to hold right here and watch a little bit of the final cutscene. It's going to takes like about 30-ish seconds or so. But as far as actual like required difficult inputs, it's done. She's just holding right. Time will be when she finishes her final input, which is you're going to see she's going to gain control of a different character named Naru, who we haven't seen any of her cutscenes, and a big tree is going to pass in the front of the screen, and that's when you lose control. But we'll tell you when it's coming up, and we'll give you a quick little countdown. It's in about 10 or 15 seconds, less than that, 10 seconds. Okay. Time is now. Time. All right, nicely done.
Got all the stuff.
Yeah. Very impressive.
Very well done. So again, I just want to stress like how difficult this run is and how volatile it can be. So
Which is why I went over estimate. It was mostly BRB, to be honest.
you know what? 12 seconds is nothing. I'm gonna go ahead and say like that's a rounding error.
Will you play the ending sequence?
You want me to?
Sure.
It's kind of playing in the background now.
You just listen to how beautiful this music is.
Yeah. So, are you pleased with your run?
The beginning was a little tricky. But the ending I'm pretty proud of.
I think you did a very good job.
I completely agree. So the reason I started running this game is I actually saw a speedrun of it being done at GDQ a few years ago.
The 4-wheel race?
Yeah. What's that?
The 4-wheel race?
No, it was actually before that. It was an all-cells race of the vanilla version, even before that one. And I was just so captivated by the movement and the visuals and the music of this game that like I immediately had to pick it up and start running it.
Yeah.
So it's just a beautiful run to watch, I think.
And once again, casually, this game is very fun and rewarding to all. The speedrun is kind of hard, I would say. It's very technical, but the game itself isn't that hard. It's you can pick it up casually and you'll be able to finish it no problem.
Yeah, and if you're interested in running it, I definitely recommend it. Like, don't be intimidated. It is difficult, but the community has a ton of great resources and is incredibly helpful for new runners. Like, there's a great Discord where people will like be jumping over themselves to help you out. So it's not scary to get into, even though it can be difficult.
Yeah, and I was actually going to shout out the Ori Discord. You guys are all amazing. I'm probably only running this game because the community is so great and they stick around, But yeah, and thank you guys for commenting.
Yeah,
Thanks
of
for
course.
running.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Thank you for accepting the run, too. Yeah.
Of course, I'll accept any day. Are we in the Blind Forest? Oh my god. Well, yeah, fun fact. Actually, when I learned the game, SmashyLe helped me learn the speedrun. So it's coming back.
You gonna get back into it?
I think so. I want to. I need to find a time. Because I was telling SmashyLe before the run that I speedrun many games, but I think Are We in the Blind Forest is my favorite speedrun. I think it's the best speedrunning game. Like, everything is there. Like, the movement is super satisfying. The story is good. The music is good. You cannot get tired of the music. Everything is there. It's the perfect speedrun.
Agreed.
Well, thank you so much for watching, everybody.
That was Are We in the Blind Forest.